This lesson is about articles. Articles are the words a, an, and the. And it's surprising that such small words can cause so many problems, but they do. I've known even PhD students, PhD candidates, who have not known how to use articles correctly. So let's see if I can help you out with that. A and an mean any general one. So if I say I want a hat, then I would be happy with any of these hats that you can see here. I would be happy with any general hat. And you can only use a and an with singular count nouns. The, on the other hand, means a specific one or ones. We can use it with plural nouns. So if I say I want the yellow hat, then it means I will only be happy with that yellow one there. I would not be happy with any hat the way I would be if I said I want a hat. So that's a singular count noun. I'm being very specific there, the yellow hat. I could also say I like the hats that my sister wears. So there, the noun is plural, but we're still being specific. Not any hats, but the ones specifically that my sister wears. And then finally, we can also use the with non-count nouns. The clothing she chooses is always in good taste. So clothing is a non-count noun, but we can still use the to mean a specific non-count noun. In this case, the clothing that my sister chooses. So the we can use with singular count nouns, plural count nouns, non-count nouns, but a and an we can only use those articles with singular count nouns. A and an mean any general one, and the means a specific one or ones. So let's get into a little bit more detail about a and an. Do not use a or an with plural nouns. So the word a comes from an old German word for one. So keep that in mind when you're trying to decide whether or not to use a or an. They both mean one. So you can't say I need a pens, because a means one and pens means plural. So they can't go together. Use a and an when any general type is okay, when you're not being specific. I need a pen, any pen will be okay. So here's a use of this article that's really important. We see it all the time in the news. Use a or an when you're introducing a new subject that is not familiar to the listener or reader. So for example, in a news article, you might hear something like this. A child disappeared from her home last night. The child was playing in her backyard. So at the beginning of the news story, we don't know which child they're talking about in the news story. So they use a. But as soon as they've introduced that subject of the news story, then it becomes a known noun. It's a specific noun that we're familiar with. So after that, every time we talk about the child in the news story, we can use the specific article, the, because we are already familiar with this noun. The child was playing in her backyard. Use a in front of consonant sounds and an in front of vowel sounds. So you'll notice that I'm saying sounds, not letters. So you can say, I need a pen, but you also need to say, I need a useful pen, because the word useful has a y sound, and that's a consonant sound. So even though U is a vowel, the sound that we hear is a consonant sound. So whenever a is coming before a consonant sound, it's the correct article to use. If you have a vowel sound, then you need to use an. I need an eraser. And that's because it's easier to say an eraser than a eraser. That's why we use an, just to make the pronunciation easier. And make sure that you put the article in front of any adjectives. So this is the source of a lot of student errors. They forget to put the article because they have lots of adjectives. So by the time they get to the noun, they have forgotten that they need an article. So I need a red pen. So you'll notice that we have a singular count noun, pen. So we need that article a, and then there's an adjective, and it comes in between the article and the singular count noun. Or I need an erasable pen. So pen is our singular count noun. An is the determiner that goes with it. And then there's an adjective in between. And we're using an because erasable has a vowel sound. Okay, so that's a and an, the indefinite article. Now we're going to look at the definite article, the. So use the with singular or plural nouns, count or non-count nouns, but not with most proper nouns. I like the pen that you have. That's a singular count noun. I like the pens at that store. That's a plural count noun. I like bread in general, but I really like the bread from Bonjour Bakery. So there we're using the definite article for a non-count noun, a specific non-count noun. But we don't usually use the definite article with proper nouns. So I like the Canada is not correct. You would just say, I like Canada. Use the for nouns when the noun is specific or unique. So, for example, I want the pen that you have. So that's a specific pen, not just any pen, but the one that you have. Or King Charles III is the King of the United Kingdom. So not just any king, the specific king of the United Kingdom. And then we also use the when you're talking about a subject that is familiar to the listener or reader because it was introduced earlier in the conversation or text, or because you share a similar environment. So for example, I gave the example of the news story in the previous slide. A child disappeared from her home last night. The child was playing in her backyard. So for the beginning of the story, we use a because it's any child. We don't know which one yet. But as soon as we start talking about them and we know the whole story is about them, then they become a specific child, the child in the news story. And we use the definite article after that to refer to them. And then, for example, the library is closed. If you're a student at a school and you say the library is closed to your friend, they know that you mean the school library. So because you share a similar environment, you can use the because your friend will know which specific one you're talking about. Or the police are coming. If you say that, then you know that you mean the neighborhood police because you are in the same city as your friends and neighbors. So if you say the police, your friends and neighbors are going to know that you mean the city police. So that brings me to the idea of context. And so I think a lot of students' problems with articles come from the fact that they're not considering context. And every communication happens in a context. And what I mean by the word context is the environment where the action is happening. So it doesn't matter what's going on, whatever the action is, it's happening in a specific place, in the school, at home, at the grocery store. That's the context, the place or environment where the action is happening. And if you use the correctly, your listener or reader should know which specific noun you're talking about, because it refers to a situation that both of you understand. So let's imagine that you're walking with a friend and you see some cars in front of you. So I'm seeing 3 cars here. So let's imagine that you say, I want the car. So the means a specific car, but we're looking at 3 cars. So which one do you mean? So if you are a bad writer or you're not a good communicator, you use the when we don't know which specific one you mean. It's your responsibility as the writer or the speaker to let your listener or reader know which specific one you're talking about. So how about if I say, I want the red car? So a lot of students think, well, if you add an adjective, then you've identified it. But no, in this situation, that still doesn't help us, right? So it's not enough to just say the red car. You can't just add an adjective and expect that's going to solve the problems. How about if I say, I want the red car on the right? Okay, now we are being specific to our context. So our context in this communication is these 3 cars, looking at these 3 cars. So the good writer thinks about the context that they share with the reader. So if you, in your mind, know that you want the car on the right, then you need to communicate that to your listener. They can't read your mind. You need to use your words to be specific with relation to the context that you're both in. And you can't expect your listener to just guess which specific one you mean. You have to describe it with your words and take into account the context that both of you share. So let's do a quick little practice. Let's look at this context. So we're looking at this basket of apples here. And so we have a sentence and you need to choose the correct articles to go in the blanks. I want blank apple, but I don't want blank apple in the middle because it is rotten. So what do we need to put in the first blank? We need to put an, because we mean I'm interested in having an apple. Any apple will do at the beginning. And we're using an because apple starts with a vowel sound. But I don't want the apple in the middle because it's rotten. So here I'm referring to a specific apple in this context of apples. So we're both looking at this picture. So when we say the apple in the middle, because it's rotten, we know exactly which one because I am being very specific to this context. Okay. So let's figure out if you can sort out when and when not to use these different articles. You're going to decide, are these sentences correct or incorrect? So if we have a singular count noun, such as apple, can we use the in this sentence? I ate the apple you gave me. Is that correct or incorrect? Well, it's correct because I'm talking about a specific one, the one you gave me. Not any apple, but a specific one. And it is a singular count noun, so it's good. All right, so let's look at the next one. I ate an apple at lunch. Is that correct? Yeah, that works. I don't need to be specific about it. I'm just saying I had some fruit. I ate an apple at lunch. Doesn't matter which one. And then how about I ate apple at lunch? Is that okay? No, it's not okay. It's incorrect because remember, singular count nouns must have a determiner. Apple's a singular count noun. We have to include a determiner. Okay, let's move on to plural count nouns like apples. Can you say, I ate the apples you gave me? Yes, you can, because you can use the with plural or singular nouns. How about I ate an apples? No, no good, because an and a mean one, and apples is plural, and one and many don't go together. How about I ate apples all week? Is that okay? Yeah, we can just leave out the article. That's all right. With plural nouns, you don't have to have an article. It's only those singular count nouns that we need a determiner. So how about a non-count noun like money? I spent the money you gave me. Is that okay? Yes, it's okay. We're talking about specific money, a specific non-count noun, no problem. How about I spent money? Is that okay? No, it's not. Because remember, means one, and money is a non-count noun. So we can't count it, not even one. Okay, so that's not correct. How about I spent money, not time? So is that okay to use no article with a non-count noun? Yeah, no problem. Remember, it's only the singular count nouns that must have an article or a determiner. How about I live in the Canada? Can we use the with the proper noun? No, not that one anyway. How about I live in the United States? Yes, we can use the definite article there. And the reason we can use it with that proper noun is because the proper noun has a count noun in it. So state, that's a count noun, right? 50 United States. So if the proper noun includes a count noun in the proper noun, then you use the, like the United Arab Emirates, or what's another one? I can't remember. Anyway, you can use a definite article if the proper noun has a count noun in it. Otherwise, you usually don't use the definite article with proper nouns. I live in Canada. Well, is there a general Canada? Is there one Canada and then another Canada? No. Okay, so you can't say I live in Canada. Can you say I live in United States? No. Again, you can't use with proper noun because means one. So we can't say one Canada, two Canadas, one United States, two United States. So how about I live in Canada? Yep, that's good. How about I live in United States? No, you actually have to say I live in the United States. Okay, so now we're going to move on to exceptions. And I am including the exceptions here because they cause a lot of confusion for students, and I find that this is a neglected area in teaching. So we're going to talk about singular count noun exceptions where the nouns are activities. So when the singular count noun refers to an activity, you do not use an article. So an example of a noun as a thing is, I don't jump on the bed. Oh, fuck me.